Hello again and welcome to our agriculture show, Ag Life. I'm GERARD LAMPOW, and on the menu we'll have a look at the numbers for crops combined as the non-harvest of 2018 is weighing on producers' minds. We have highlights from the appreciation night for Gerry Ritz. We meet one area rancher getting ready for a big celebration next year. Lots to unpack, but first, is our consumption of meat actually bad for the environment? Well, yet another study is out examining greenhouse gas emissions in livestock production. Let's find out what cattle producers are saying. Researchers led by Oxford's Dr. Marco Springman are saying that a meat diet is hurting the environment. The study contends beef consumption needs to fall by 90% and be replaced by 5 times more beans and pulses. Cattle producers are weighing in.
I think it's really important to look at the big picture of beef production, to look at the vast grasslands that are utilized, that are lands that aren't suitable for other types of food production. And it's these kinds of things that these types of studies don't often take into account.
Adrian Ivy ranches with her family in Ituna, Saskatchewan. The study also points to a balanced diet relying on plant-based food and protein.
Protein is really important, and my little young athletes, it's really hard for me to get enough protein into them, even with having meat in their diet.
The land used for beef production may not be useful for any other food operation, and if it's not grazed, those areas could be vulnerable to grassland fires. The Beef Cattle Research Council points out that greenhouse gas emissions are down 15% in the last 3 decades. However, concern remains about the warming of the environment by cattle.
Whether or not the animal emissions make a significant contribution to that warming, I don't think anyone can state with any kind of conclusive evidence.
Dr. Joe Schwartz is a chemist whose work helps to simplify chemistry and food issues. He says he loves meat, but there's more reason to cut back as a lifestyle choice and not for greenhouse gas emissions.
There are issues with different kinds of meat. Processed meat, of course, has been linked with colorectal cancer by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. Red meat as well is listed as a possible human carcinogen. And then, of course, there is the impact of growing all the crops that are needed to feed animals.
Schwartz questions meat processing and points to studies that speak of the benefits of a plant-based diet. He's not ruling out eating meat, and it all comes back to a balanced diet.
A question on curbing some of the excessive intake that we're seeing here in North America. And of course, the production of fertilizers, production of pesticides, the shipping of the cattle, the shipping of the grains, all of those have a carbon footprint.
Cattle rancher Adrian Ivy says vegetables are really important, but there's no better source than meat to get energy levels that her kids demand.
There's really no other better source than beef to get the combination of iron, zinc, protein, and B vitamin 12.
So once again, a question of balance. Well, time now to roll our events calendar. Remember, if you've got a community event, just email me, glampow@newcap.ca. We'd love to get the word out. Let's have a look. And still to come, we've got highlights from the appreciation night for former federal Ag Minister Gerry Ritz. Ag Life continues after this break.
This segment of Ag Life is brought to you by Webb's Machinery. Webb's Machinery, your New Holland dealer in Vermilion, Vegreville, and Lamont.
Ag groups like Team Alberta estimating provincial crop losses at over $3 billion. We have a look at the numbers as Harvest 18 hangs in the balance. It's being described as the non-harvest of 2018. The major crops across Alberta are sitting in the field, in some cases covered in snow, too wet to combine and behind the 5-year average. As of October 9th, 46.7% has been combined. That means Alberta is 35.6% off the 5-year average of 82.3% on major crops.
The quality of the crops that's in the bin has been reported as good.
Susanna Sangster with Agriculture Financial Services puts a positive spin on the numbers, even as the cost of aeration and quality degradation are outstanding.
Canola acres are estimated to be 26% combined and 52% swathed. Spring wheat acres are estimated to be 56.7% combined and 9.6% swathed. And barley acres are estimated to be 52.5% combined and 15.9% swathed.
AFSC feels there's about 7.8 million acres across Alberta waiting to be harvested. Lloydminster is in the central region. All crops are at 43.7%. The 5-year average is 82.1%, so our area is 38.4% behind the 5-year average. For the Lakelands, which is in the northeast region, the average is 43.5%. The 5-year average is 79.4%, so northeast Alberta is 35.9% off of the 5-year average. Southern Alberta is 19.9%, Northwest is 38.5%, the Peace region is 55.6%. So in Alberta on major crops, the 5-year average is 82.3%. So with 46.7% completed, Alberta is 35.6% behind on major crops for the 5-year average. The quality of what's in the bin is the only saving grace.
So wheat estimates are 80% of what's been harvested are reported to be in the top 2 grades. Barley is 85% of what is harvested is estimated to be malt or 1CW. And peas, 90% of what's been harvested is grading a 1 or a 2. And over 75% of bin canola is grading a 1.
AFSC will have to receive and review clients' harvest reports. Those reports are not due before November 15th, so a final dollar value may not be available before December.
Trying to estimate the potential amount of crop insurance claims at this time would be speculative. There are many factors, including the different levels of elected coverage, crop yields, crop quality, and the number of potential unharvested acres that contribute to what the final indemnities will be.
Well, as I found out, his legacy is certainly more than just the end of the Canadian Wheat Board. It's appreciation night for Gerry Ritz.
Gerry was the first minister that I actually asked to come to my riding in Milton, Ontario, and I was very worried about the visit.
Lisa Raitt won the riding as Gerry Ritz delivered.
Gerry was so fortunate to have such dedicated volunteers. You're the backbone of our conservative movement across Canada.
And it was just so inspiring to me, also coming from a farming background, to see that if you work hard enough to make a difference or to make a change, that if you work hard enough and you work with other people, and like he said, you are one piece in the puzzle, you can't do everything by yourself.
Thanks also for being such a great mentor to me. You were elected in '97 and I in 2000, but I'll never forget the kind of guidance I got from you.
Lisa talked about what a tough scrapper Gerry was for agriculture, for Saskatchewan, for the West. He was relentless, but Gerry, he brought the country to the cabinet table. I mean, he brought rural common sense.
He was, in fact, the longest-serving agriculture minister in modern history. I came to rely on Gerry's consistent hard work and sound advice in our years of collaboration together, and I know that Canada's farmers and workers in our agri-food industry have never had a better advocate.
Then it was the turn of the lady who has replaced Ritz in this riding.
As a member of Parliament and as the Minister of Agriculture and as a member of the Harper Conservative government, Gerry had many accomplishments. He was a constant advocate and voice for our communities and our Saskatchewan way of life. He helped open and expand Canada's access to international markets. And of course, he brought an end to the Canadian wheat board monopoly. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gerry Ritz.
Bureaucrats in Ottawa, and a lot of them are still good friends of mine, but they play a role that's somewhere between referee and protagonist, and I'm not sure which one they're good at. But at the end of the day, when I brought industry in and sat them down with the bureaucrats and said, we're going to change everything we do to be results-driven, not process-driven. Every bureaucrat loves a 5-year program with an extension. I want it done in 5 months.
And therein lies his ag business common sense, let's get her done approach.
A fitting tribute for our ag minister of many years. Gerry's term was not without controversy, but he was an effective minister that got things done.
Well, back to the non-harvest of 2018. Yes, the losses could be more than $3 billion, especially if you're factoring production inputs. Still, that number could vary depending on if farmers are able to salvage some crop. I checked in with the one area producer who's caught up in the trials of this year's harvest.
Well, actually, we've been weighing off the combine at a scale here just to the north of us, and I think last talk to Mom, it's doing just under 60. Which is pretty good for this time of year.
Garth George has 12 years under his belt as a full-time farmer. He's got 340 acres of Liberty 255 PC. It's reading about 11 to 12% moisture. Producers would like to get canola down to 10 or less. He will take his grain either to ADM in Lloydminster or Cargill in Camrose.
Different elevators have different rules. Some will take it and just give you shrink for it, and the other ones won't even take it. They'll reject you after it's over 10. So needless to say, this stuff is probably going to go to that elevator that'll take it over 10.
He says the growing season looked great, but the weather has been unreal, a fight to put it mildly.
We started combining, I guess it was about August 10th, and we're still standing here today. And I guess if we had a good week left, we'd probably get it all wrapped up if all goes well. But
the first time I've ever had my grain truck driver radio me and tell me that the highways are getting icy and we are still combining.
Snow has once again stalled harvest. Like so many area producers, he's been pushing the clock going till 3 in the morning, then starting again the next day. Family support is keeping them going.
My mom and dad run the combines, and then our good friend and neighbor who we rent land from runs our grain cart, and then my cousin's out here somewhere with the harrows. He's with us, and then my wife does a lot of the baling and helps out, but we just had a newborn.
George still has 12% of his crop left in the field. He still hopes to get it all done. Producers will welcome improved conditions. When it comes to family dynamics and managing the farm, the phrase, "I have a brother," changes depending on the intonation. We get some insight from a farm family coach.
They have conflict addressed because they have a model for forgiveness.
A strategy for diffusing tensions on the family farm is one of the tools Elaine Froese unpacks from her farm family coaching kit. The elder brother syndrome arises when some farmers automatically anoint the firstborn as the one that's going to take over the farm.
I'd say that you really need to match the skill sets and passions to the jobs required on your farm and hire out for the gaps and skills that are missing.
On her family operation, she says her husband manages and her son specializes in sales, but they hire out on the mechanical side. Also, some 28% of Canadian farm operators are women.
I've met some very strong women in agriculture who are in their early 30s and are farming with a brother, but the interesting thing is that the brother's skill set may typically, in these two scenarios I'm thinking of, goes towards the mechanical side and hands-on, an operation side, which is very important. Everybody's role is important. But for the women, it's the managerial, administration, production, operational decision-making that's important, the overall management of the farm.
Froese asks her farm families to look at their core values as they decide how to move forward with a family business vision for the farm. Everyone's work ethic is different and tension builds where one sibling works harder than the next.
Another phrase that I use is, you get the behavior that you accept. And so my question to the brothers is, why haven't you sat down and talked about this? Secondly, why haven't you been tracking your hours? Because data is factual, and I've had farm families actually do that to solve this conflict.
Productivity is also affected by age.
What you can do is figure out how the aging brother needs something different in terms of time and compensation, like I mentioned before, and also not let the resentment build up, because younger brothers who may not take responsibility for their actions might just need some maturing time.
And when we come back, one area producer is gearing up for a big celebration next year. Do stay with Ag Life. Ag Life continues now, and I'm chatting with Shelley Fox of Justamere Farms. They've been in the business actually. Next year, they will be celebrating their 100th anniversary in ranching. 120 actually. There. So, Shelley, that's an awesome achievement for yourself and your husband, John.
Yes, for sure it is. And our kids are now the 5th generation, and all 4 of them are a very huge part of the whole organization. If we didn't have them helping us out every day, you know, it would be a totally different story, and each one wants to make their livelihood in the agriculture business.
Perfect. And of course, we need young people to continue these great traditions we have here on the prairies. Tell me about your operation. I mean, it's mainly Black Angus, but tell me some more about it.
Well, we run a purebred Black Angus operation. We calve out about 175. Part of that is a small commercial herd to support our embryo program. We also, we graze, plant our own feed. We'll do green feed. We bale hay all summer, and we grow corn for silage to feed as well in the winter months.
Yeah, because I saw some corn just further up the 40th Ave here as I was coming down to you guys there. So that'd be awesome. That'd be something we'd follow up on in the the future.
Yeah, within about a month or so, we'll have a crew come in and they custom silage it for us, and we'll get it all in the pit for the winter.
Super. There are lots of things happening now. The other challenge is this weather, not just for grain producers or the crop folks and such, but for you guys as well, because you've got this year's bunch of calves, and we're all struggling in the mud and the wet conditions here.
For sure. Normally around this time of year, we'd be ready to wean all our calves. And then we just leave the cows out on pasture. But with all this wetness, our feedlot where we put the calves, once they're weaned, is just, it's swamped. And so weaning is a stressful enough time on the calves as it is, so we can't be weaning them and putting them in fighting with mud and whatnot. So we're going to have to back our weaning off till things dry up around here.
Now, the pasture is still looking fairly green with all of the moisture that we've had, but it's presenting a problem for producers. And you're thinking maybe if producers don't get their crops off in time, we may also have an issue to deal with in terms of feed for the winter.
Oh, for sure, yes. We're in a fortunate area this summer where we did get enough moisture and the crops were looking really, really well. However, with the cold weather, the frost, if it doesn't dry up and they can't get the crops off, well then for sure we'll definitely have a shortage here ourselves.
Yeah. What kind of prices you're looking at right now? Because you've got some massive hay bales here, but still, do you need some to supplement?
We've sold some hay already this year to some producers close around. Of course, we keep enough for ourselves because you never know what spring's going to be, so we always try to have enough left over. We've got a few 100 acres of green feed, which has been ready for a couple weeks, but it's still standing, and we hope to get it down and baled, and we'd be able to sell some of that as well. So.
And still to come, a reminder about the main theme from Animal Health Week. Do stay with Ag Life. Well, at the start of the month, we had Animal Health Week. The focus this year, making sure our furry friends are up to date with their vaccines.
So the theme is Vaccines Save Lives. And so it's put on by the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association as an educational program. Every year is different.
Dr. Heaver says vaccines are important for preventing disease.
Most of the things we're vaccinating for are viruses, and so those, again, are very hardy, and depending on which species that you're talking about, it's about preventing disease and also about the human health component of some of these viruses. Some of them can transmit to people, like rabies virus, and so it's part of the One Health initiative.
So the bigger picture involves preventing the spread of disease from animals to people. Worldwide, more than 55,000 people die from rabies every year. Rabies is of concern in the Midwest, especially as many people, including hunters, interact with animals in the wild.
We get rabies reports from the government of Saskatchewan as well as Alberta, and we do get positive animals reported. The Macklin had some positive bats, and so we always get the report of in the year how many we're seeing, and we always see some.
Bats, skunks and raccoons are some of the notorious carriers for rabies, and worldwide 40% of people bitten are under the age of 15, so mainly children. Farm animals, including cats and dogs, need their shots.
Good girl. Good girl. We get a lot of people that say, oh, my dog never leaves the farm. But again, the wild population is coming onto your farm. So again, rabies is, we always recommend to vaccinate for rabies, even if your pets are indoors. There have been reported cases of, rabid bats inside buildings. But again, farm animals, parvovirus can be carried by coyotes.
Vaccination will help build up herd immunity for diseases like distemper, parvovirus, hepatitis, and reduce the spread.
That's where vaccines prime the immune system so that they can help fight off that.
That's a wrap on this edition of Ag Life. Give me a call, give me a holler, even glampow at newcap.ca. Love your story, ideas and such. Yours in Ag. We'll see you next time.